Hey guys, it's Jeremie. We're here to do part 3 of my testimony. So we left off the last video. I was talking about how we left Africa after my 6th grade year, and all that stuff had happened to me spiritually, and I had started to make those decisions that were really leading me down a bad path, of lying pathologically, of stealing, and I was talking a little bit about that dream that I had had that was really became a waking reality for me, and then the possession. And so when we got back to the States, I went into my 7th grade year, and I don't really have a whole lot of specific detail to give you about my time in middle school and into high school, except for some very key events that happened that really stand out to me as turning points. And we'll get to one of those, but during that time, I can't tell you exactly what spurred it, except that I know doorways were opened in my life, and I just continued to make these detrimental decisions to my own mental, spiritual, and physical health as I progressed in middle school and high school. So by the age of 14, I had tasted my first cigarette, and I had also started dabbling in softcore porn. Quickly grew into a full-blown addiction, into hardcore porn, and I was smoking 2 packs a day by the time I was in high school. And I just couldn't stop. And on top of it all, I didn't want to stop. And the funny thing is, during all this time, I still thought I was a Christian. In my 11th grade year in high school, I was named the chaplain of my class, which was really ironic because I was probably the one living the most hypocritically at that point. So during all that time, I continued to make these decisions that completely flew in the face of what my parents blatantly told me to do. You know, here are the rules, and I would just turn my back on them and not follow them. Anything I could do that would seem rebellious, I pretty much wanted to do. But during this time, I still thought I was a Christian. I still called myself a Christian. I still thought I was getting to heaven and all of that jazz. And then my best friend's mom came down with cancer. And during this time of our lives, of her life, of her family's life, of my best friend's life, and my life, I began praying to God. The hardest I've ever prayed, for God to heal her, to bring her out of this sickness, to have a testimony that would lead people to his name. And it became evident to me fairly quickly that he wasn't going to heal her, that she wasn't going to pull through this physically. And so at that point in my mind, when I realized that she probably wasn't going to make it, I decided that I was going to change my prayer. Okay, Lord, you're not going to answer this way. How about this? I changed my prayer. I said, God, all I want to see from this whole debacle, this whole thing with her being sick, I want to see one person affected positively for your kingdom. And then she died. And everything went to crap. Everything just fell apart. I couldn't really show it because it wasn't my mom, but I felt like my life was falling apart, and I watched my best friend's life fall apart, and I watched all these things happen that seemed to be just completely the opposite of what I had prayed and cried out to God for him to do. And I didn't see anything positive come out of her death. And so it was at that moment when I realized, you know what? I don't want to have anything to do with God. And my faith wasn't my own. I realized that at that point. This isn't my faith. This is my parents' faith that I just claimed. But it's not really mine. I didn't know God. And so it was at that point I stopped calling myself a Christian. I didn't want to have anything to do with the church. I didn't want to have anything to do with hypocrites. I didn't want to be a hypocrite. And so I literally took the label off of myself. I said, I'm not a Christian anymore. I'm turning my back on my parents' faith. This isn't who I am. This isn't what I want to do. This isn't who I want to be. I stepped down as chaplain from my class, and I told them why. And from that point forward, every decision I made, if anybody could believe it, I found even more destructive choices to make. And I sought them out, I think, intentionally, to really try to prove to God that I could do it myself and that I hated him. And I told everybody in the world that would listen that God didn't listen to me. He says he listens, but he doesn't. And it was at that point in my life that things really, really, really started to snowball downhill very quickly. And we'll get to that in the next segment. But God bless you guys.